provoke. This speaker talking about how they're seeing basically people kind of disappear from the system, and how this bill, they believe, could help with that. So that's a news conference continuing at the Congressman's district office in Orlando. Meanwhile, I'll give you a live look on Capitol Hill. This is the Senate Judiciary Committee talking about what they call the President Biden cover-up, talking about the cognitive concerns of surrounding the former president. We did see a few moments ago Senator Ashley Moody of Florida questioning some of the witnesses. The witnesses today, I will say, not part of the Biden administration. One of the witnesses is a law professor at the University of Virginia, another one with the Heritage Foundation, and then you also have Sean Spicer, who is a former Trump White House press secretary, one of the witnesses there as well. But I want to play for you this morning. Senator Ashley Moody was on Fox News. She was on Fox and Friends First, talking about why she sees the need for this investigation, this hearing, and what they hope comes out of it.
Well, look, I think this is the first congressional hearing to probe not just what we're finding out in terms of evidence of decline, but evidence of deceit. And what these witnesses will do will kind of set the stage for what would we expect from a commander-in-chief who is operating at full capacity. What should we have expected on those surrounding him? What would they have known? Of course, many, Sean Spicer worked in the White House. And to what extent did the media participate in this cover-up? It is no longer in doubt whether or not the president was operating in a way that we would expect from a commander-in-chief. We know that there was evidence of decline, and not just what we were watching play out on television in terms of mixing up names of foreign national leaders, but we now know that people were limiting his access to the cabinet, limiting the amount of time he was working. I mean, that is a dangerous, dangerous state to be in when you have policies that are unfolding that are creating a very dangerous national security here in our own country. And so those things are playing out right now. We're uncovering the evidence of that. And this congressional hearing is meant to
Florida Live starts now.
Good afternoon to you, and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We've got a lot to get to here in this afternoon session with you here. Want to let you know some of what we've got ahead of us here in the next hour coming up. We're going to check in our Tampa connection with check-in with Fox 13 Tampa Bay, where they are following the Tampa Bay Sun FC Championship Boat Parade going on right now after they won the USL Super League Championship, the first female professional team there in the city, and celebrating it today with that championship. We're also going to get you to a news conference that we expect to begin any minute now in Kissimmee, where they will release the findings from an investigation done by the Orange County Sheriff's Office into that department, and looking at some changes they were hoping to make. We expect that to begin any minute now. It looks like some final preparations underway for that. But we begin with some breaking news this afternoon, where we have learned from the Tampa Bay Rays confirming that they are in discussions to sell the team. A lot of rumblings about this, obviously, with owner Stu Sternberg and the bridges burned in Pinellas County especially. But this statement released by the Tampa Bay Rays saying the Tampa Bay Rays announced that the team has recently commenced exclusive discussions with the group led by Patrick Zalupski, Bill Cosgrove, Ken Babby, and prominent Tampa Bay investors concerning a possible sale of the team. Neither the Rays nor the group will have further comment during the discussions. Now, we should note that the initial report from Sportico says this is a $1.7 billion deal. want to go ahead and go now. We'll have more on that in just a little bit, but I want to get us to Kissimmee, where the new police chief, Charles Broadway, just stepped up to the podium to talk about the findings from this report looking into his department. Let's listen in.
Very detailed, oriented report and investigation for us. So I want to first start by thanking them. But today marks a turning point, not just because we're here providing the findings of the Internal Affairs investigation of the Orange County Sheriff's Office, but because I'm standing here to own the facts, explain the decisions, the discipline given, and share the changes that we've already implemented to ensure something like this never happens again. We want to also ensure that our community knows that we are a professional agency and we will continue to move forward with purpose. If we go back to April 22nd, 2023, former police officer Andrew Bisagio used excessive use of force after claiming an individual was resisting arrest. The actions of Bisagio and others that evening raised serious concerns. Those concerns deepened when the state attorney's office conducted an independent review that raised additional questions about truthfulness and conduct by other members of the agency. Today, we are taking the final steps in the city's original commitment to conduct the independent investigation into the department, as well as those involved in mishandling of the response to resistance investigation. There are two things that I really want to make very clear. I'll be very matter of fact and be very direct about. The first is that type of behavior that we observed on the body cam is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Second thing I want to be very clear about is that this was not a department-wide cover-up. The actions of a few who have been held accountable do not reflect the values, the commitment, the dedication, the integrity of the men and women of the Kissimmee Police Department as a whole. We should not be here today. But we are, because a former police officer made a series of unacceptable and deplorable decisions, including influencing two other officers to lie to minimize his excessive use of force. Subsequently, the city of Kissimmee requested the Orange County Sheriff's Office to conduct an internal affairs investigation to achieve transparency, objectivity, restore community confidence, and ensure accountability. Since receiving the findings of the investigation on May 27th, a methodical review of almost 300 pages of this investigation was conducted by myself, police department leadership, members of the made regarding any disciplinary actions are guided by what's firm and fair, as well as in accordance with policy, procedures, and the law. We could not speak about it publicly until all employees have been formally notified and served. So to begin, 13 members of the Kissimmee Police Department were named as subjects as within this internal affairs investigation. Now you will receive a detailed report of those sustained violations and those officers. Just to give you a quick breakdown of the 13, two officers resigned, or two members resigned prior to the Orange County Sheriff's Office investigation. Two members were terminated prior to the Orange County Sheriff's Office investigation. 3 members were terminated at the conclusion of this process of the Orange County Sheriff's Office internal investigation. 2 members were demoted to police officer as a result of the Orange County Sheriff's Office internal investigation. 3 were suspended, and then 1 out of the 13 was exonerated with no sustained violations. So to go in more details, 4 members resigned or were terminated before the Orange County Sheriff's Office could conclude their investigation, including former officer Andrew Bisagio, who was arrested on August 6, 2024. He was relieved of duty and charged with felony battery, 2 counts of witness tampering, and 1 count of official misconduct. Despite resigning before the investigation concluded, the investigation continued its quest for the truth and facts, and also found Andrew Bisagio actions sustained for several Kissimmee Police Department policy and general orders, to include compromising criminal cases, falsification of records and reports, and failure to obey laws and policies. His criminal procedures are still ongoing. 3 officers have been terminated. 1 officer was terminated for sustained violations of truthfulness and for compromising a criminal case. Another officer was terminated for sustained violations of compromising criminal cases, standards of conduct, and truthfulness. And then the last officer was terminated for sustained violations of standards of conduct. 2 other employees have received our notice of intent to demote them to the rank of police officer. 1 corporal, who was sustained in compromising criminal cases, was demoted to police officer. And a sergeant, who was sustained for violating standards of conduct, was demoted to police officer. 3 officers received a 24-hour suspension. 1 corporal, 1 sergeant, and 1 lieutenant all received a 24-hour suspension for unsatisfactory performance. Last but certainly not least, of the 13, 1 sergeant was exonerated with no sustained violations or disciplinary action. Each outcome was derived from a thorough review of individual actions as per our written directives regarding their involvement in the initial excessive use of force investigation. These decisions were not easy and were not made lightly. Each was based on the evidence, policy and procedures, the law, and our new department core values, as you see here. These core values are the new standard. They're new guiding principles. That's what we all hold each other accountable to. These core values are also implemented written into our policy. Again, this is what we hold each other accountable to. This is a litmus test for every single thing that we do internally as well as externally. Any standard that's less than these core values, and we are not meeting the standards of the Kissimmee Police Department of courage, honor, excellence, integrity, and service above self, or service above our own self-interest. But today's not only about what happened. It's also about what we're doing, where we're going, and that we are on track. Since stepping in as Chief of Police on April 1st of this year, we have focused on continuing to restore integrity, building a department that operates with transparency, accountability, and purpose every single day. We are making changes that go beyond discipline, but that reach the core of how we lead, how we train, and how we serve and protect this community. I will be able to update you regarding some changes and implementations on a 100-day report, but I just want to give you a glimpse of some of those implementations and some of those changes that have been made already. I've appointed recently a new Assistant Chief of Police who brings to this agency an extensive amount of law enforcement and leadership experience. He has worked prior with the Osceola County Sheriff's Office under former Sheriff Hansel and former Sheriff Gibson. He is here to help strengthen our executive leadership team. We will also promote additional executive staff members in our nearby future to ensure adequate oversight. We've enhanced our early warning system to flag patterns early and intervene quickly and proactively, not to discipline, but to identify where additional support and training and review may be needed. These efforts build upon the progress already underway. Before I arrived, the city leadership and interim chief, Robert Anzueta from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, began implementing reforms based on the grand jury presentment. This work was foundational. It included assessing the command staff's qualifications, improving internal policies on response to resistance, and providing training on crisis response and critical legal topics. We strengthened our internal affairs unit by assigning 2 sergeants and appointing an experienced civilian internal affairs manager to lead and ensure impartiality and accountability and consistency within all of our investigations. We've also addressed reporting gaps to guarantee full compliance with all state requirements concerning moral character violations or violations of moral turpitude, use of force incidents, as well as Brady disclosures. We will work and cooperate with the state attorney's office. Because of the commitment shown by all of our personnel, I can confidently say that we are moving forward with strength, transparency, and a deep responsibility to the community that we vow to serve and to protect. To our officers and civilian staff, I want to leave you with this. I want to say thank you first. I see your work. I see your commitment in the midst of this challenging investigation over the past 2 years. I see your professionalism, your patience, and your willingness to rise above. You have earned the right to be part of what comes next. We're all familiar with the quote that challenges in tough times builds character. But I also believe that challenges in tough times reveals character. It reveals who we are, it reveals what we are made of. Because we are not defined by the worst day behind us, but it's how we respond, how we adapt, how we reform, how we get back up again, how we rebuild from it. To our community, your trust is our foundation. You've expected more, and you have the right to. What we do as public servants is about you. It's about serving and protecting you. It's about your safety. It's about enhancing quality of life and ensuring that you have a voice and that you maintain confidence in the Kissimmee Police Department. So with transparency, accountability, and the dedication of every member of this department, we will emerge stronger than ever. Our message is still simple but very clear. It's that we are moving forward. We're ready to serve and to protect this community and continue to provide exceptional service to everyone we come in contact with. Thank you for being here today, and at this time I'm ready to answer a few of your questions.
So just to clarify, did the investigation reveal that there were incidents of misconduct unrelated to the use of force incident?
Everything was related to the use of force incident. Standards of conduct was more on the lines of, we had, as I mentioned before, I had 2 officers that falsified a report, falsified what occurred at that use of force incident to minimize Officer Visaggio's actions. So everything was related to the use of force incident.
Were you able to, or was the Orange County Sheriff's Office able to unearth any additional information related to other cases? The people implicated here, did they have a pattern of falsifying records, making untrue statements in other cases that were assigned to?
No, everything was limited. The scope was limited to this investigation here.
Can you talk about the moment you received this report and the decision-making that your team made, how that process worked for you guys afterwards?
Sure. When I first got the report, it's disappointing, and it's not just as disappointing to me. Meeting with my staff, the one thing that law enforcement officers just totally despise is when other officers, tarnish this badge, do something contrary to our core value, do something contrary to integrity, do something contrary to this honorable and noble profession. So it was a little disappointing. But again, I want to be very clear, as I stated before, that this was not a department-wide cover-up. As an officer convinced 2 others to lie, and they're all been held accountable.
What about the civilian oversight, where that was discussed last night at the commission meeting? How do you think that if that is, established and implemented, how do you think that might work alongside with executive staff that you're saying that you guys are wanting to hire to create more transparency? How do you see those working together?
Sure, I think it's going to work great. I think I'm looking forward to a great partnership. I'm looking forward to hearing from our community. I'm looking at our policies and procedures. And making sure that the best policies, procedures, and protocols are in place to serve and protect this community. Giving our community an ear, and it promotes transparency as well.
Was the former chief aware of what was happening? Is she part of the 13 people that were either terminated or they left? What can you say about the former chief?
Sure, so that will be in your document before you leave. The former chief resigned prior to this Orange County Sheriff's Office investigation, and there was violations sustained against the former prior chief.
So she's still being investigated as part of the cover-up investigation that's still ongoing?
She resigned prior to the conclusion of this investigation. So when you get your document, you will see that there were sustained violations against the prior chief.
Do you expect any other criminal charges to emerge after this?
No, so they did a criminal investigation. The only one that was charged criminally was Andrew Visaggio. Everyone else was administratively internal affairs investigation.
Can you talk about the ones that were suspended for 24 hours? Like, how was that line run? Like, what did they do?
Sure. So we look at how egregious the violation was, ensure that discipline is firm but fair. We also look at progressive discipline, similar discipline, past discipline, and then make a decision again that's firm but fair, and according to the violation that they committed.
What's involved with the suspension?
So the ones that were suspended received a 24-hour suspension each.
With pay?
With 24-hour suspension without pay.
And what can you tell us about the new assistant chief and just kind of what made them an attractive candidate to be in that role?
Sure, he's the consummate professional, brings an extensive amount of experience. He was a high-ranking member of the Osceola County Sheriffs under the leadership of Sheriff Hansel, as well as former Sheriff Gibson. He also has worked at several past years at Florida Department of Law Enforcement as a special agent, where he was assigned to the Public Integrity.
Kissimmee Police Chief Charles Broadway speaking right now. You see the core values listed behind him. He says this is a turning point for the Kissimmee Police Department as they get this report from the Orange County Sheriff's Office talking about what the department needs to do moving forward. All of this stemming from that April 2023 arrest. As you heard the chief talk about 2 officers resigning and 2 being terminated prior to this investigation, then 3 more terminated, 2 demoted, 3 suspended, and 1 more exonerated. Actually, we're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Jamie Copenhaver, a former sheriff's detective and investigator, to put all this in perspective for us. So we'll be right back with more Florida Live after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Chief Charles Broadway with the Kissimmee Police Department. Still taking a few questions here. He was just recently hired, I believe, April when he took over. He was the former police chief in Claremont, and he taking over from the interim police chief who stepped in after the previous police chief stepped down as part of all of this. The grand jury report criticizing the department for fostering a culture of silence and covering up misconduct. You heard the chief say this was not a department-wide cover-up, but he still said the actions were unacceptable. Hearing him talking about some compromised cases and also falsified reports in this. Let's go ahead and listen back in as the chief, I believe, is likely winding down this news conference.
Moral turpitude will be forwarded to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission. I can tell you that those officers who have sustained violations, that credibility is in question, that we will work with the Brady coordinator. I can also ensure that I will have employees in the right seats and who will be properly trained. We will communicate, and I will hear from our personnel, and I will hear from boots on the ground to make the right decisions to move this agency forward.
Last question.
For people at home in Osceola County, this might feel, absorbing this information, this might be amplifying their concerns about law enforcement more broadly. Obviously, just the other week, we learned about the charges against former Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez. I'm not trying to equate the two situations, but could you understand how there might be this erosion of trust in the county, and what would you say to those people?
I can understand, and I would tell them, and I would respond as, hey, changes have been made, changes are still coming and in progress. Those responsible have been held accountable, and again, the actions of a few do not reflect the overwhelming majority of the men and women committed to serving and protecting this community. Every profession has a small percentage of employees that do something contrary to integrity. But the main thing is that when that happens, that we hold them accountable and we're continuing to move forward. And I encourage a dialogue. If anyone still has concerns in our community, I'm an open book. This agency is open. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue, because we are stronger and more effective when we work together with our community. The police are the community are the police. Thank you. Thank you.
Chief Charles Broadway with Kissimmee Police Department wrapping up that news conference, talking about the findings of the independent report, the independent investigation from the Orange County Sheriff's Office looking into what happened in Kissimmee there. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Jamie Copenhaver, a former sheriff's detective and investigator who joins me now. And Jamie, we appreciate you joining us. I thought it was interesting at the end there to hear the chief weigh in as he was asked about the kind of loss of trust within the community across Osceola County, because now we've had this with Kissimmee, obviously what's going on with the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, and so I'm just hoping you could weigh in a little bit on the importance of having that trust with the community and kind of rebuilding that after some incidents like this.
Thank you for having me, Garrett. But I would say first, let's give this chief an applause, a round of applause for coming out, standing tall, and reassuring the citizens of Kissimmee that the Kissimmee Police Department is on the right path for not only healing, but also getting rid of those bad actor cops that we saw and heard these horrible things about in that report, that internal affairs report by the Orange County Sheriff's Office. So I think the chief did exactly what he was hired to do, which was come in and reinstill that, hey, we're not going to tolerate this behavior, but also give us a chance. We're going to change the climate within the Kissimmee Police Department.
Because those were serious allegations. He talked today about some of the findings that were sustained about compromising cases and falsifying reports. And so, he certainly had challenges taking that job. And I would imagine also, with this new report, this new investigation, with some suggestions for changes, also probably not necessarily particularly easy to implement some of those.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, the changes, well, first of all, let's go to the policy. I mean, that policy is written, and I've got to tell you, Garrett, when you take that oath and you swear that oath to protect the community, that doesn't mean to go out and sabotage a criminal case and get other people. You essentially conspire to get other officers to provide wrong or incorrect or untruthful information. So you just can't have that. So, we saw this one officer indicted back in August. That was the start of this. And then, of course, the grand jury spoke very heavily and loudly in that case with the indictment. So that cop is gone. What concerns me are the cops that were not terminated in this case. Are they going to have a monitoring system? The chief says it's going to be tracked. So any red flags that would pop up, they're going to be notified immediately. So, my concern is, what have they gone through in the past year and a half or 2 years? And this chief's going to have a little bit of work ahead of him to bring that trust back, not only with the officers, but also the citizens.
Yeah, let's talk about that with the officers and kind of within the police department. He said this was not a department-wide cover-up. So what does, where do things go from here with some of these officers and others who weren't necessarily involved in this?
Well, I think this internal affairs report coming from the Orange County Sheriff's Office certainly spoke volumes in terms of kind of cutting out the bad people, if you will, or the bad apples. But what that should do to the men and women of the Kissimmee Police Department is show them, look, you're going to get a fair shake. The agency went outside to get another agency to conduct this internal review, so they wouldn't be any cover-up or potential room for cover-up. So, I credit the whoever made the decision within the police department to do that. But more importantly, I think the chief, in his own words today, said we're not going to tolerate it, but everyone gets a fair shake, and not the entire department was involved in this. So, he's looking to heal that department. Keep in mind, some of these people that were involved in this, some of these people that were not involved, they all work together, Garrett. They're friends. They may hang out on a weekend to get a movie or what have you at home. So, everyone in that agency's really affected by this, but, there's a new sheriff in town. And I think the chief did an outstanding job, reassuring not only the citizens, but his own agency. We're going to move forward as a learning issue here and can't allow this to happen.
All right, Jamie Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator. Always appreciate your perspective, and thanks for joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are tracking a championship celebration in Tampa Bay this afternoon. The Tampa Bay Sun FC being honored after their USL Super League championship over the weekend. And I want to bring in Fox 13 News reporter Kylie Jones, who is joining us live, where these celebrations are continuing. And Kylie, looks like a good time out there.
Yeah, we're having so much fun. The heat is here, the sun is here, but that's fitting because the Tampa Bay Sun just won the team's first championship, and I have one of the team captains here with me right now, Jordan Listro. Jordan, has it really even sunk in yet?
No, it honestly hasn't. I mean, we won, partied after the game, and it's just been celebration after celebration, but we're so thankful, and happy that Tampa showed up for us today.
Now, not only is this a historic win for the team, but this is the team's first season, Tampa Bay Sun's first season. This is also the USL Super League's inaugural season. You guys now hold a title that really no one can take away from you. You guys are the first ever champs. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think we had a target on our back from day one. Our roster is always really talented, but you didn't really see those results in the fall. And then in the spring, I think everything came together and we peaked at the right time and were able to win the championship just like we set out to do.
What did that mean to be able to, A, come in on the boats? I like the Bucks, like the Lightning. Now you guys get your turn to come in on a boat parade and then celebrate here.
Yeah, I actually was at the Lightning Parade with my family a couple years ago, so it's surreal to be able to do it as the first women's professional soccer team in Tampa.
And Jordan played soccer at USF, so Tampa holds a special place in your heart. Up there, you called it home, and you guys talked about what this means for all the fans out there. What does this mean for women's sports and girls sports?
Yeah, I love that we're becoming a football city, and it just gives the opportunity for all those little girls to dream big and be able to achieve something right home in their backyard.
Awesome. So Bucks move over. Tampa Bay Sun's here too. Jordan, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Go enjoy your celebration. Thank you. So obviously so exciting for this team. Again, this is the Tampa Bay Sun's first season. They won the championship in their first ever season, the USL Super League, and this was the league's inaugural season. So much history being made all around, and it's even more exciting because this really just gives the team more momentum here in Tampa Bay. The team is looking for a permanent place to call home. They were playing across the river at a stadium, but they are looking for their own stadium, and the team's ownership just released some renderings yesterday of some visionary plans, if you will, giving a look into what they hope to see in a Tampa Bay Sun stadium in the coming years. It would be 15 to 18,000 seats in Ybor Harbor. That is right in the heart of downtown Tampa. And so, city leaders, we just heard from the Tampa mayor saying this would mean so much to have the team a permanent home here. No matter where they go, they're going to stay here in Tampa Bay, the team's ownership vows. But, just having that place that they can call their own would be so exciting. So that could be something we could see in the future. But for now, the team is getting a well-deserved celebration along with the community.
Kylie, things certainly off to a good start for the Tampa Bay Sun. You kind of talk about how things really just started for them, but what a way to really kind of get yourself get the excitement in the community. I'm just curious what the turnout was like out there for the celebrations today.
Well, again, if you can't tell by looking at me, it is very hot out. It is very sunny, so the people are dealing with the elements, but it didn't keep families from coming out. Good thing school's out for the summer. So some people have left because they just wrapped up the official celebration, but some people are still sticking around, and a lot of families come out. We talked to one little girl, she is 8, and she is a very hopeful soccer player. We talked to her and her dad, and she could not be more excited to be out here, and that's really what it's all about too, beyond the trophy. The team really is making an impact in the community, and you could just see they were so excited, stopping to take pictures with the little kids, shaking hands, all of that. So very well received here. The team also has been selling out games at the stadium. The championship game over the weekend was sold out, so they're not at a loss for fans, I can say that.
Well, it sounds like exciting times ahead for the Tampa Bay Sun. We were able to show some of those renderings as well. But what an exciting day out there, celebrating a championship with that, getting that boat parade. That just has to be cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, it's no more Tampa Bay than that, having a boat championship parade. So in true Tampa Bay fashion.
All right, Kylie Jones from Fox 13 Tampa Bay. We appreciate you joining us live this afternoon here on Florida Live. And we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee on Capitol Hill held a hearing about concerns with the cognitive capacity of former President Joe Biden. We've heard a lot of talk about this and talk about whether there may have been some sort of a cover-up in the administration. It's something President Trump has talked an awful lot about as well. Earlier today, Senator Ashley Moody of Florida, she is a member of that Judiciary Committee. She had her chance to ask some questions of the witnesses who were testifying today, and she talked about specifically about illegal immigration enforcement and compared to the Trump administrations and how that contrasted with what we saw with Biden. Here's what she had to say. And what we heard in that hearing earlier today.
And certainly I appreciated my colleague Senator Britt's remarks in listing out so many of the failures of the last administration as they played out. I think Americans, yes, sat horrified as they watched these events unfold, but at the core of those failures were bad policy decisions. And the truth is, you know, people talk a lot about the end of the Biden administration and his debate performance. But those of us that were involved of the repercussion and the consequences of some really bad, irresponsible, reckless, I would say dangerous policies, and were involved from day one of the Biden administration, we started questioning immediately who was making these decisions, because they were so disastrous for the security of this nation and the safety of our people. So I would say from day one of the presidency through all 4 years, this was a legitimate question, and every single failure that Senator Britt listed was the consequence of a policy decision. When I was the Florida Attorney General, one of the very first executive actions that came out undid both Republican and Democrat presidential precedents of saying, if someone is here in our country and they're here illegally and they are committing serious felonies, we are deporting them. And actual priorities were that those were the ones they went after first. And one of the very first actions that came out of that White House was they abandoned that both Democrats and Republican presidents had enforced, and released to all law enforcement around the nation that they were no longer going to make that a priority. When sheriffs were calling and pleading with us to take these people from their jails and not make them release them back into the communities, we would try and communicate this, but indeed they were canceling detainers and releasing these people into the communities. They were taking people that were brought here from other countries, brought here only to prosecute because they were a danger to our nation and our people. And instead of deporting them after their prison sentences, they were pushing them into the United States. And I don't think it should be lost on anyone that just yesterday it came out. You know how many the Trump administration pushed into our interior in the last full month? 0. And I want you to compare that to a month of the Biden administration where hundreds of thousands of people, barely vetted, if vetted, were forced into our nation's interior. And you've seen these consequences play out. It's not just rape victims, murder victims, robbery victims. We've caught people here that's from foreign nations that are on the terrorist watch list that can cause some of our nation's biggest tragedies and devastation. That is the undermining of what a commander-in-chief is supposed to do in those policies. We saw it day one, and that's just one example. And it played out for 4 years. So I think one of the reasons that you see not one Democrat in this hearing room right now asking these questions is because how do you defend the indefensible? What are they going to say? I mean, there has never been a more reckless, negligent administration that I can remember in my lifetime. And as an attorney general, as the wife of a law enforcement officer, as a federal prosecutor, as a judge, I sat horrified that that was the person that was in charge of our safety, our commander-in-chief, in charge of our borders. And I know, Mr. Wold, you you have talked about the danger in executive actions being pushed out when somebody's not in charge that understands how it's affecting the safety of this nation. I'm sure based on your prior experience and some of the things that you saw being pushed out, I often thought, this is a radical aide's dream. You have a commander-in-chief barely paying, probably not able to pay attention, and they're pushing out policies left and right. Tell me in your experience if you noticed anything where that could be the case coming out of that administration.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I mean, I think on the immigration score itself, so many of those sort of special powers exercised by President Biden on parole, on temporary protected status, they require the president to do those in his own name, correct? It's a case-by-case evaluation performed by the chief executive. And so I think in reviewing some of those, when I was sitting on the sidelines, the question I had was, what does the paper process look like for that? How did DHS work that up? How did it go through the staff secretary's office? And what was the president briefed on as far as the policy considerations tied to some of these decisions to bring in violent criminals from Haiti or Nicaragua into the interior of the United States?
And did it concern you when you learned, and we are now uncovering, that cabinet officials were kept from meeting with the president for months at a time?
Look, I mean, if you go back through our history, Senator, so Grover Cleveland, Wilson, FDR, JFK, President Johnson, President Biden, it's almost a Democrat sport to keep from the American people the health and acuity of the chief executive. They've been doing this for a long time, but this is of another level, especially as Mr. Spicer was mentioning, the complicity of the national media in obscuring this, but also that cabinet officers would go to the lengths of avoiding interacting with the chief executive because they were fearful that they would have to speak to his diminished capacity.
And I'm running out of time, and it was of particular concern that the media seemed to never ask him about executive actions and policy. Favorite flavor of ice cream? Yes. Why he was pushing dangerous criminals into the interior of this nation? No. And that is why I think this hearing was so very important. What was coming out of this administration was a radical wish list, and certainly you can see it, what has happened and the consequences playing out right now, and now I think we're all seeing why.
Was Senator Ashley Moody, and the witness she was talking to there was Theodore Wold, who is with the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. We're going to take a break here on Fox 30, or on Florida Live rather. But when we come back, we're going to take a look at the immigration issue from the other side of the aisle. Congressman Maxwell Frost in Orlando today talking about legislation he's filing to hold ICE and ICE detention facilities accountable. We'll have more on that in just 2 minutes. So keep it right here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and good to see you on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Today, Congressman Maxwell Frost unveiled the Stop Unlawful Detention and End Mistreatment Act. He says it's a piece of legislation that is designed to hold ICE detention centers accountable and also protect due process rights when it comes to immigration enforcement detainees. Specifically would require these facilities that are holding these detainees to identify who's being detained there and why. Here's Congressman Frost talking about this bill earlier today in Orlando.
I'm Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost, and I'm proud to stand alongside some of the fiercest local advocates fighting to hold Donald Trump and his administration and this state accountable for a taxpayer-funded kidnapping program, trafficking our people across the entire world that they're running under the guise of an immigration system. Here in Central Florida and across the country, we've watched as Trump's ICE agents abuse the rule of law, completely skirt over due process, and target non-violent people and working people. We're talking about mothers, fathers, grandparents, taxpayers, even folks showing up for their immigration hearings. Plainclothes federal agents are snatching people off of the street, wearing masks. These people are terrorizing our communities across the entire country and terrorizing our people here in Central Florida. And when they find them, we hear the stories that are completely heartbreaking. People are being held in detention centers described as hell on earth, where food, water, bathrooms, beds, and medicines are sometimes withheld, where basic dignity is being stripped away. I want to be clear. Being undocumented in this country is not a crime. That's right. A civil offense. That's right. No human deserves to be caged, brutalized, or disappeared for it. And no one is safe in this country. We've heard about U.S. citizens being wrongfully detained under Florida's extreme immigration enforcement policies. And this is what's happening across this country. It's a culture of fear and of chaos. The things you see go on in Los Angeles, that chaos that the Trump administration started. They want the money and resources in this big budget they're trying to pass to export that chaos across the entire country to all of our communities. I ask everybody watching, no matter who you voted for, was this chaos around our country before Donald Trump became president? No. He ran saying he wanted to make us more safe, make our communities more peaceful, but he's done the exact opposite and has scapegoated immigrants to tell you that they're the reason why you can't afford your rent. Immigrants have nothing to do with the reason you can't afford your rent or why you need 2 jobs or why you can't afford to send your kids to school. It has to do with the massive influx of wealth inequality in this country, billionaires and corporations that have been running the show for generations. We can't let politicians like Donald Trump pit us against one another, especially in Orlando and in Central Florida. We are an immigrant-filled community. We are a community filled of people. And yes, people are going to have different statuses. And to my Republican colleagues who say, I don't want any undocumented people in this country, I actually agree with you. So let's document every single one of them with a speedy path to citizenship. That's how we fix this problem. But this terror campaign of having masked people rolling up in vans, unmarked vans, grabbing students off of the street, trying to go into elementary school graduations, saying they're going to go into churches and rip people from the church pew as they pray, to put them in a facility where their family can't even find them, where their lawyer can't even find them, not knowing where they're at, how they're doing, what the conditions are, and then the one day to wake up and find out that your mother, that your father was sent to another country, and in many cases, sent to a foreign gulag, like in El Salvador. This is the reality of this nation right now and what's going on. And it's disgusting. It's not what our country is about. It's not what our country should be about. And so I'm proud to be here with advocates, organizers, lawyers, people who are fighting against this, to say we all deserve to feel safe in this country. We know we have a broken immigration system, so let's fix it. Instead of punishing those in this country, many of whom who have been our neighbors and been Americans for decades. For decades. We know we have an issue to fix here, but this cruelty is not the answer. This terrorism on our communities is not the answer. And so today, I'm very proud to be introducing the Stop Unlawful Detention and End Mistreatment Act, otherwise known as the SUDEM Act. This bill is a step towards pulling back the curtain on our immigration detention system and shining a light on what's happening in the shadows right now. The SUDEM Act would require ICE-operated and ICE-affiliated facilities, including private and local jails, contracting with ICE, to publicly report who is being detained, where they're being detained, when they've been detained, and why, the legal justification and evidence behind every single detention, facility demographics, age, nationality, legal status, and the data on use of force, disciplinary actions, transfers, and deportation. This bill, to be clear, does not fix the entire problem, but the purpose of it is to give tools to the legal community, to advocates, to organizers, and more importantly, to families to know what's going on with their loved ones. I just want to bring this up again because we have people, I just heard of a case, someone who worked at Universal, employee of the month, employee of the year, someone who's been working there for a long time, a member of our community, who was snatched up, has been sent to 3 or 4 different facilities, and now is in Texas. The family having a hard time finding out where they're at, how they're doing, even speaking with them. It's disgusting. And so I'm proud to be introducing this legislation with people who are doing the work behind me in this community to keep our people safe. And we have to talk about the lawlessness of this administration. They said they wanted to arrest elected officials, then they arrested a mayor of New Jersey. Then they arrested one of my colleagues, LaMonica MacGyver, who is facing federal charges for simply exercising her legal ability to conduct oversight on an ICE facility. Then, I'm in an oversight hearing talking to 3 governors. I asked them, what do you do if Tom Homan sends ICE agents to go and arrest you? And 2 hours later, Senator Alex Padilla in California is thrown to the ground and handcuffed simply for asking Kristi Noem a question about what's going on in his own community. This is lawlessness. This is terrorizing our people, our communities, arresting your elected officials. And so everyone has to know that the things you see on TV, it's happening here. This stuff is happening in our community right now. And they want to make it even worse. And so the SUDEM Act is one part of a huge puzzle in making sure that we can have accountability for this agency, ICE, that is completely out of control. We saw just yesterday, the New York City Comptroller, Brad Lander, was walking somebody, a constituent, from an ICE hearing, or from a hearing, and he was arrested and taken to the ground simply for asking for where the warrant was. People at home have to know, even if you voted for Trump saying, yes, let's get people out who are undocumented, this and that. Something else you also have to know is that Trump is actively working to make more people undocumented and rip away the legal status from more people in this country. Whether it's ripping away TPS, an extension that was lawfully given, and in my opinion, illegally ripped away from so many people, whether it's the ripping away of the parole program that was put into place under the Joe Biden administration, pushed for and fought for by immigrant advocates.
Congressman Maxwell Frost in Orlando earlier today talking about his bill, the SUDEM Act, that he says will hold ICE detention centers accountable. At another part of this news conference, he also talked about how he believes he may be able to get some support from other Florida Congress people, even on the other side of the aisle, because of some of the concerns that they have voiced as these things continue. Well, here's a live look at Steinbrenner Field, the home this year of the Tampa Bay Rays. We are continuing to follow up on these reports, now confirmed by the team that the owner is in talks to sell the team in exclusive conversations with a group led by a developer out of Jacksonville. We're following up on this. You saw me bring up Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who announced that the Fed is leaving interest rates unchanged. And one last note here on Florida Live, the Karen Reed retrial verdict about to be read. You can find that